Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again this week for another round of education. Especially today, we've got our special guest, Taylor Hernandez, our international Scumbassador, hailing from the West Coast, and he's here to bring some knowledge to everyone. So, thank you for joining us, and take it away, Taylor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Taylor. I'm from Orange County, California. For those of you who don't know where that is, that's like 40 miles away from downtown Los Angeles. I know there's lots of people tuning in with us today from all over the world. I would love to hear where you're from. If you want to drop that in the comment box. At any point during the haircut, you want to ask a question, feel free to drop it in the comment box and we'll get to it. Today at Reuzel, we like to focus in on those classic hairstyles. George, my model here, has an epic set of hair. You can see he's been growing it out for a while. And we want to take him down to a pompadour, a little tighter on the sides, not too tight. I want to leave some length here on the sides that he can comb back, keep it nice and full, just something he can push straight back. Now I'm going to do the shape using shears, just set in my sketch wet with shears. And then I'm going to blow dry and then go in with my clippers and kind of hug in that hairline a little bit just to give them a little longevity. And then I'll go blending shears and kind of take out any unwanted weight that I want to get rid of. And then as I go through this, I'll talk about some products that I'm using. So let's get right into it. The first thing I like to do when I start a haircut, I just like to evenly saturate the hair all the way around. And basically what I'm doing is I like to just assess the hair. I'm checking his texture. I'm feeling his density. I'm kind of combing it where I want to style it. And I'm just kind of basically what I'm determining is whether or not George's hair can support the hairstyle that we want to give him. And before I get into it, I usually like to take the hair tonic and a lot of people like to pour this in their water bottle and spray it in as they're going through. I personally like to just take a little bit in my hands. I don't squeeze the bottle. I just let it kind of come out naturally. And I'll just rub it in my hands. If it drips on the floor, I'm probably using too much. And I like to just massage it in the hair. And what that's doing is it's kind of breaking down the natural oils in the hair. And also it's going to act as a nice cutting lotion as I go through this. And also too, he's getting a scalp massage, so he's already getting an experience, and the hair tonic's going to give him like a nice cooling feeling on the scalp. And that's what we want to create for our clients. That's what separates us from the barber down the street. That's what I love about these products, is that they give our clients the experience. So now that I did my pre-cut assessment, I feel fully confident that George here can support this hairstyle. I'm going to set in my primary parting. So how I find my primary parting, the primary parting is going to live right at the round of the head. I usually like to set my comb right on the scalp, and right where it starts to teeter-totter is usually around the round of the head is. So I'll come in and I'll set that in nice and smooth. I'll set that up. Basically, this is sectioning the top half of the head from the bottom half of the head. And I'm going to take that line all the way to center back. All the way to center back there. And it kind of looks like this line is kind of curved. It's not curved. It's just a straight line on a curved surface. So if I take my comb here as this straight object and I kind of follow it, it's going to follow just down. And when I think of, dropping it lower in the back, that's going to help me out in the long run as well, because a lot of cowlicks live in the crown, right? So sometimes in the barbershop, maybe we'll cut the cowlick off, and just because it looks good as he's walking outside, but in a week, that cowlick is going to stick straight up. So when we drop it a little lower in the back, we get to incorporate that cowlick. And when I think of incorporating a cowlick, I think of longevity in his haircut. So George is going to come back in 4 weeks, and he's not going to have any weird hairs that are going to be sticking up. And I really want to make sure that I'm checking for symmetry as I'm doing this, because my baseline is going to live right below my primary parting. So I really want to check and make sure everything's coming in nice and evenly in the back here. I'll check in the mirror. I'll look here in the mirror and check that out. Looks good. I'm gonna fix this in the back a little bit. Just really taking my time. I'm not too worried. This may seem like it takes a long time, but this is gonna save you time in a long run. This sectioning the top half from the bottom half is gonna keep me organized. And I have a clip over here. And when I think of being organized, I'll be able to create a stronger shape. So I want to really focus on creating those nice clean sections. So as you can see, he's got a nice little horseshoe. It drops a little lower in the back. Now I'm going to set, I mentioned my baseline, and the baseline is going to live right that parting. So how I will determine where my baseline will be, I'll take my shears here. These are 6-inch shears, if anybody cares to know. I'll come in with the big teeth, and I'll comb everything up. And I'm going to start just behind the ear here. And the reason why I start right behind the ear is because that's the widest point of the head. So if you look at George from a profile, I'm going to keep it at the widest point of the head. I'm keeping that square profile. If I start here, that shape starts to collapse a little bit, but I want to maintain a nice square profile, a nice masculine shape. So with this, I'm going to take this section up, tabletop section. So I like to imagine a marble resting on this section. If I'm over directing this way, the marble is going to roll into the head. If I'm over directing this way, the marble is going to roll off the head. So I want to keep that marble balance. I do not want to lose my marbles. I do that enough. So I'm going to set in my baseline. I'll take it probably right there. I'm combing all that hair up, nice and tabletop. Making sure that's even. I can go over it as many times as I want, just to like make sure it's where I want it to be. Now we're working with quite a bit of length here. So just making sure that's nice and even. I'll comb all this hair up, connect to that, and I'm just gonna work now to center back. And I'll probably work just past center back, just so when I come in from the other side, I'm able to connect those sections nice and even. So coming in with my big teeth, always be working in front of your section. You could either like do the step, or you can, make sure you take advantage of the chair and turn it or pump it up. We don't want to be breaking our back. We want to create longevity in our careers. So we want to just kind of take advantage of the chair, like spinning it, bring this all the way back here. George has probably been growing his hair out probably like I want to say 3 to 4 months since the last time I cut his hair. He's a musician, so he gets around, and he finally is able to come in, and it's going to work perfect today because it's going to be like a total makeover on him. I'm stoked. Yeah, I say things like stoked because I'm from Southern California, right? All right. So now I'll just kind of check for balance with my baseline, kind of make sure everything's dialed in. So what's so important about this baseline is this is going to be the transition into the top. So if I take this hair and I'm going to bring all this hair to here, so this is going to determine the length of the hair in the middle of the head right here. And also, it's just going to give me a nice transition into the top. And what we do below the baseline is up to us as stylists. That's where we can be creative. We can take it as tight or leave it as long as we want. So I'm just going to make sure I'm evenly saturated as I go through this haircut, because if it starts to dry up, you'll start to get inconsistencies that we don't want. So I'm just going to keep in mind that we just want to keep it nice and saturated through this. So now I've set in my baseline. I'm going to start to work on the right hand side. So I'm going to do the right hand side first, and I'm going to be doing diagonal back sections all the way to center back, using my baseline as my guide, right? So now I don't have to worry about, going back and cross-checking. My baseline's already set into place, and my guide's already here all the way to center back, and I'm just going to follow that. So I'll come in with my little teeth here, draw a diagonal parting, section that out of the way, find my baseline that I set in. My baseline, I'm going to angle this part of my finger in towards the hairline so it hugs in a little tighter, and then I'm just going to connect. Bring that out. All right, and I'll move to my next section. I'm taking about 1/2 inch subsections, and how I pull the hair out is I like to come in with my little teeth, and I'll come in and I'll take my fingers right behind it, and I'll just follow my teeth until I see my guide, and then I'll check for the angle that I created on the other side, and I'll just set that in. Double check here, got everything, got a little stray hairs right here. So you can see all this kind of mess right here. I'm not really worried about that. I'm focused on creating a nice solid shape first. And I'm starting to get towards the back of the head. And you see all this hair down there. I'm only picking up hair that I can handle. I don't want to be trying to pick up that entire section. I see my baseline. I see my angle. Cut through there. Yeah, only picking up the hair that I can handle. I'm not trying to take on what I can do. I'm only cutting to my second knuckle for a reason, because once you get past that second knuckle, you start to lose a little bit of tension in the hair, and then you start to get some inconsistencies. So I just am cutting to my second knuckle, and because I don't want to chop my fingers off. It's never good when you have to bandage up in the middle of a client and just like a boxer, just bandage it up and just get right back in there. It's never a good look. So the reason why I'm taking 1/2 inch subsections is because it creates a little corrugation. When I'm using shears, if I take this hair out, I see a straight line, but I see a little bit of corrugation, and that's completely okay. It's going to create some texture, and that's why I like creating a shape with shears as opposed to maybe clippers or clipper over comb, which is completely fine. It just depends what you want to do, right? It's all in what you want to do. But this is a great option. I really like the inconsistencies, those minor inconsistencies that you get with shears, really make all the difference and make a little texture throughout the hair. If I were to take, maybe a little bigger than an inch section, that's when you're going to start to run into problems. One, you're probably not going to be able to see your guide, and you never want to cut when you can't see your guide. So, and when you get those bigger sections, you start to get bigger corrugation in that line, and that's when you start to see clumps. So I'll come in, check for my guide, looking for my baseline, working all the way through. You notice I haven't touched any of this hair. He's kind of got this mullet, which I'm not opposed. I'm pro mullet, but today we're going to give George something nice and classic. And I'm working just past center back. Just like I said before, I want to just work to pass center back. So when I come in from the other side, that it just kind of flows nice and fluid together. So I'll come in, got this section here. All right. So now I got all this hair. It actually kind of looks cool from this side. I would rock that totally. I kind of got a little mullet going on myself. So now I'm just going to connect the hair that I didn't get because I couldn't pick up this whole section. I'm going to come in underneath, And I'm just going to connect that from what I was working on before. Just dial all that hair in, get rid of that mole, if you will. Okay. And then I'll kind of tilt his head. Still working with diagonal back sections. I see my guide up here. I'll go ahead and cut. And again, I'm not too worried about all this hair down here. I'm just completely focused on creating a nice, strong, square shape. And I'm saving all the details for at the end. Connecting that bottom with the top that I just cut. All right. And also what I like about creating this shape with shears is like I'm creating a custom shape. You know, a lot of guys, you know, have flat heads, like their head's kind of flat back here, and you want to build weight where weight is needed, right? So you kind of create a custom shape. If I were to just take like a clipper with a guard and just kind of mowed through this, you know, I'm following the cracks and crevices, and I'm following his head shape where I'm creating my own custom shape. So if George goes to the barbershop down the street and, you know, he's like, he doesn't know what to say because I didn't use a guard. You know, I gave him a nice custom shape. So it adds value to you as a barber and stylist. And that's always important, right? What separates you from the other person? So that's why I really like these techniques, and they're super efficient, and it allows you to be creative because you get to do whatever you want underneath this baseline here once you've set it in. The baseline is basically the map of the head. It's gonna determine everything. So, it's got a little dry on this side, so I'm just gonna make sure that's evenly saturated. At this point, if he wanted half off his haircut, he can leave now. All right, so now I'm going to be working on my non-dominant side, which can be a little tricky. It took me a little while to get comfortable with this, but just make sure you like follow those steps. But so same thing I did on this side. I'm going to start just behind the ear. I'm going to double check on the length that I set in over here. And on these little notches, I'll kind of just determine that this is a YS Park comb. It's got little notches on it. So it's about, you know, I don't know. I just know it's to this notch. I don't know how many centimeters. I'm not a math whiz or whatever. So I'm just going to kind of come in, set that in. Just about ballpark, you know. This is my sketch, you know. So, all right. So again, I'm going to have his head right here. I'm coming in with the big teeth. I'm coming in up. I'm bringing all this hair up. She's got a lot of. And I'm going to pull out to that baseline there. And I'm going to set that baseline in right above the widest part of the head, which is the widest part of your head is basically your mastoid, if you want to get technical, and that usually is right behind your ear. Maintaining that square profile from the front. Okay, so I'll kind of double check for symmetry. Kind of look. That looks pretty good. So I'll set it. I'll work to my front with my baseline. See where I left off. My baseline, and I'll just connect that to the front. Again, using my teeth, I'm using tabletop sections, not losing my marbles here. And then once I've set that in, I'll work to center back and connect with my baseline on the back there. So I'll bring all this hair up. go back on your baseline if you feel like you need to, adjust it slightly, Don't get too wrapped up. Again, this is just like as we're cutting wet, this is just our sketch. So come in, I'll follow that. You really want to be standing in front of this section. I'm kind of standing off to the side just because I want the camera to see, but as we're in the salon or barber shop, we really want to be standing in front of that section here. Connecting that. And then I should be connected to my sections on this side. So follow that. And that benefited me just working just slightly off center back or just past center back. So now my baseline just connected nice and smooth. So now I'll just kind of check for symmetry for my baseline, make sure everything's kind of nice and even. I feel happy with that. So now my baseline is set in all the way around to the head. So that's why it's so important for it to be even all the way around to the head, because if it's off on one side, your top's going to be off on one side, right? So it really helps. And also too, for me, I used to just start on one side, and there's nothing wrong with doing it this way, but I would start on one side and I would just work all the way around to the head. And sometimes I would get longer. I'd start to get longer on this side, and then I'm like, crap. And then I have to go back and kind of figure out where I messed up. Where if I set in my baseline right off the bat, my guide's already there, and it allows me to stay more efficient that way. Okay, so now I'm going to work on setting the shape on my non-dominant side, and it's the same thing, just slightly different. The only difference is we're going to still work in diagonal back sections. Only difference now is the tips of my fingers will be angled towards his hairline, as opposed on this side, I was like this. Now I'm like this. Okay, so diagonal back sections. I'll take my first one. I'm making sure that hair is nice and evenly saturated before I cut. I see my baseline. My baseline's tabletop as I'm cutting this. And I'll work just to my second knuckle here. And just connect that. Now, my non-dominant side with shears is just in general, when we're cutting hair, our non-dominant side always is a little awkward, man. And my best advice as you do this is just to go through your checklist, right? So you're standing in front of your section. You're cutting to your baseline. You're checking for your guide in the back. You just got to go through this checklist as you cut through. And as you start to do it more, you'll start to do it without even thinking. The more you practice it, I worked on many of doll heads just to practice this shape. As a barber, I think I'm a barber, so out of school, I feel like I was so focused on the fade. It was always like the fade. Is the fade cool? Where when you're only barbers see the fade, right? And there's nothing wrong with the fade. Like a nice clean fade, it's always like, it gives me chills. I'm like, oh, that's butter, But nobody sees the fade when, like, if you're a regular person, they just see like the good stuff on top. They see the shape of your hair. So I was never took shears that serious. So once I was able to, start to create shapes with shears, it added value to me as a stylist. I was able to take on another clientele that I wasn't able to before. And it added value to me, and I was able to make a little more money, which that's always good, right? Make sure I'm diagonal back sections. Working to my baseline. Come in. I'm standing in front of my section. I'm checking that guide underneath. And I'll work. And now I'm starting to connect to the other side that I previously just worked on. Nice. Dude, George is looking so handsome. He's got like a side rat tail right now, which is dope. Okay. And again, he's got a little hair right here that I missed. I'm not too worried about that. You know, I'm just worried about the shape that I'm creating right now because I'm going to taper this in anyway. And plus, I want him to look funny until I do. It's kind of funny to look at. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to get all this hair underneath. I'm going to connect it from what I was doing on top. I got those fingers kicked in towards the hairline just so it hugs in a little nicer. Tilt his head here. I'm connecting with that length on top that I created. Checking for that angle underneath. Bam, nice and clean. Now I'm just gonna connect this little part in with the other side. Just connect that last section there. Second knuckle. So now that all kind of blended in nice and smooth. So now you can see it's got a nice shape all the way around the head, right? You know, all this hair underneath here, you know, he's got a strong shape through. All this hair in the back, I'm going to clean up later. All right, I guess I'll just kind of trim that up so it doesn't look too funny. But now I have my baseline set in. I have a solid shape underneath. And now I'm going to transition into the top. Okay. So the first thing I like to do is I'll comb everything straight back. And then I'll like make sure everything's evenly saturated again. Don't want anything to dry up. Okay, so I'm going to break this up into about 5 sections here. So I'm going to take a peek in the front here, take where his nose is, and then I'm just going to part that right down the middle. And I'm using that little corner of my teeth, right? And I'm just going to draw a straight line down the middle, separate that. Now this is where, remember how I showed you how to find the round of the head in the beginning? Where it kind of starts to teeter-totter. Now I'm going to find the highest point of George's head, the crown. And right where it kind of, you know, right in there is going to be his highest point. So I'll set my finger here as a guide, and then I'm going to take this just behind the ear, and I'll section this off. So now I have one section, and I'll do the same on this side. I'll take this just to behind the ear. I have 2 sections. So 1, 2, and then I'm going to create a nice little triangle in the front. So I'm going to, right where it starts to, like his recession point is right there. So I'm going to take a little triangle. Take this a little wider. And now I have another section. I'm going to define this triangle right here. I'm going to come in on this side, find his recession, take it to that recession point. So now he's got this little, if you tilt your head down, George, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. And I was in Chicago at the beginning of the year, around April time, and I was watching Rob do a demo, and he called this the Tinder triangle, which I got a kick out of because, you know, this is the money shot. This is what all the ladies see, if you will. And I heard Nick Fury call this the Bumble Bump. Thought that was a good one. So it's kind of entertaining. I don't know if you're laughing or not because I'm in a room by myself with George. But yeah. So
No,
you're laughing?
hey, Taylor, it's Franz just checking
What's
in.
up?
Hey,
Cool.
just wanted to let you know that's all great advice, man. Thank you for that. You've got a lot of people checking in from all over the world, saying hello. You got some of your fellow Scumbassadors checking in as well. Um, got a couple of questions here. One of them was specifically a good one was a wide diagonal back as opposed to vertical when you're doing your cutting. I'm guessing that's the question.
So I like to do diagonal back sections because I've my finger is my when I hold out my fingers are most comfortable going this way. Once I start to get this way, I'm kind of breaking my body a little more, and it's kind of a little more awkward for me. So I kind of just like to be at a comfortable angle, and I just kind of like to work center back. I'm still able to keep a nice square shape with those diagonal back sections. So hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. I'm sure that does. All right, man. I'll let you get back to it. I just wanted to check in. Looking
Awesome.
great,
Thank you,
man. Thank
Franz.
you.
All right. So I'm going to start on my right side. So we're connecting the top half to the bottom half now. So I'm going to start on this back right section and then I'll work into this. So now I'm bringing all this hair down to my baseline. So I'm going to take my first section here. I'll push all this up. And I like to take my big teeth. I don't need too much tension here. I'm going to just kind of take everything, you know, if you want to come and hover over me, Hannah, I'm going to take everything to that baseline underneath. And I don't have too much tension. I'm just going to lift up. There's my baseline underneath. And I'm just going to cut to it. Right? Come in. I'll double check for my baseline. Bam. Make sure I got everything covered over here. Perfect. All right, and then I'll take another about another half-inch section. I don't want to go anything bigger than an inch. You know, you can if you really like are in a rush in the shop and you want to take bigger sections, no problem. But just keep in mind that as you're taking bigger sections, you might create a little more weight through that baseline, and it might take a little longer to kind of refine out at the end, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's something to keep in mind. So I just like to keep it at half-inch subsections, making sure I'm following that baseline underneath. I'm not working with the fine teeth of my comb right now. I'm just working with the wide teeth. I don't need too much tension. And I'll take this last section down. If that anything reaches, definitely does. Take it to that baseline. Got this last section right here on this side. Bam. And then you can kind of check for that shape coming into play, keeping it nice and square, building that square shape up. Okay, and then I'll come into this right here, this section, put all this on. I'm not worried about the tender triangle right now. Come underneath. I like to come underneath. It kind of helps me because I'm able to grab that baseline and hold it out tabletop section, and I can just figure it out and I'll find it underneath and just cut. Working to that front part here. Take that down to my baseline, and we're cutting. Now, I've probably said baseline like 11 times since I've been doing this haircut. And the reason why I'm saying it so much is because it's important, you know. It's the map to our haircut. So you really want to, you know, see the benefits in that and the kind of how it's efficient behind the chair, and it creates a nice cool haircut, nice and square. All right, so now I'll come in on this side and I'll do the exact same thing. Essentially, I could start on any of these sections because my baseline is already there. My map is already there. And I could start at any section and just drop it down to my baseline. I just kind of like to work on my dominant side first and then move to my non-dominant side. So I'll just come in, work out to the baseline there. Got a couple more sections on this one. Now, one problem that I had with cutting back here is I would like over elevate this, and then like my shape would start to go like this if I'm holding it too high in elevation, and it would start to go like this, and I would start to collapse some of the weight back here. So I really want to make sure I'm taking down that hair to that original baseline that I set in the beginning. There we go. Got my last section here on the back part. Just got a little bit. That looks good. Awesome. So now you can see that weight that I'm leaving in here, and that's gonna look cool as I like blow dry it in. So I'm doing my last section on the left side before I hit that triangle. Push all this up, combing down to that baseline. Take a peek under. I like to use my shears as I'm combing and just like push up and check it out. Some people like to use their comb. I find it most comfortable for me to use my shears. That baseline, bam. So now you can see how that baseline determined the length. So all this hair came all the way out to this baseline, and it determined that length right there. So now for the Tinder triangle, right? Okay, so I'm gonna over direct all that whole triangle to my right side, to my left side, sorry, and I'm gonna connect it. So I'll over direct all this, and when I think of over directing, I'm creating length. So I'll take this hair, and I'm gonna start to angle the hair down, so it creates a little length towards the front. If you hold it at 0 elevation, you're gonna get a little longer. If you hold it a little higher, you're gonna take a little more length off. But it's always good to you know, angle that hair down. And I'm gonna go a little around 0 elevation. I want to maintain as much length as possible so it gets that nice luscious pompadour flowing through. And you can see how I just kind of angled down, and if I push it back, it's just gonna lay nice. And also what helps when you over direct that front part is you're not going to create any holes in that recession area right here. No gaps or anything. So I'll do the same thing. I'm going to over direct all this hair to this side, 0 elevation, and start to create that angle here. There it is. All right, so now I've set in my sketch wet. before I blow dry, I'm gonna just kind of section out a mohawk section on the top. And I want to maintain this hair, but my guide should be right here. And I'm just going to connect it. So I'm going to bring this mohawk section up. And I should have a guide already set in place for me. So you see that hair where I brought this down to my baseline. So now I'm just going to connect this to that front part. I don't want to take any length off that front part, but I'm just going to connect it to it. So now I see that length right here. I see my guide. I'm just going to take off all that mess right there. Perfect. So now I have set in the initial sketch of my pompadour here. Nothing too short. We're gonna blow dry this in, and then we're gonna start to take out some of that unwanted weight. I'm gonna go in with the fiber gel. The reason why I'm going with the fiber gel is because it's got a firmer hold to it, but it's pliable, so I'll still be able to get my fingers through it. Another cool thing about this gel particular, when I think of gel, I think of me in junior high with a giant tub of gel, and I'm wearing like all those white flakes on by like second period. This does not flake at all. It's a great tool to use to blow dry in the hair. I could have totally gone in with the grooming tonic, which is a great option. Has a little bit of a lighter hold, but I want a little bit of a firmer because I want this to really rock up front. I took about a dime size, and I'm just going to massage it from scalp to ends. And I'm going to really blow dry that in. All right, so this might be kind of hard to talk as I'm blow drying here. Might not be able to hear me. I'll do the best I can. But as I'm blow drying, I'm going to use my Denman brush. As I'm blow drying here, I really want to focus on working on the back. And I'm following my brush with my blow dryer and just pushing the hair where I want it to go. I don't want to have any wet hair lay on top of dry, or I don't want to have any dry hair lay on top of wet hair. So I like to start in the back. Just push that hair where I want it to go. I don't want to create too much volume through here. I just want to point the hair where I want it to go. I might take it in a couple directions. We'll come in through the side here. Just brush all that back. Now, when I think of blow drying, I think of tension. If I just kind of like did this, the hair just kind of expands. You really want to direct and put tension on the hair in the direction that you want it to go. And then I'll come through the front, give them some nice little lift here. Basically, when I want to create lift, I'll come in with my Denman brush and then scoop up and then pull out. And all that's coming right off the scalp to get the most volume. you can start to see that pompadour taking shape. That's what I love about men's grooming. Cut that short hair. No. What I love about men's grooming is that, once you cut that shape in, you get, as you blow dry, you see that instant gratification coming to life at the end. So I'll come to this side. Now, with this side, I'm going to come in and switch hands. Um, my Reuzel hair mom, Carrie, I was in Chicago. We were doing demonstration. I was blow drying like this. I was like breaking my back. I was really like working it in, and I was like, my back is totally distorted. And she's like, Taylor, just switch hands. And like my mind was blown because then I was just like all in perfect posture, and like, how you do something for the first time and it just feels really weird. But I did it a couple times, and it totally like changed my life. And it's important to, keep good posture as we get further in our careers, because, we're on our feet all day. We got to take care of our body. And if our body is messed up, then, we can't make money. Come in and get some lift through here. You can see that pompadour kind of coming into play here. Sometimes I'll kind of go. And then I'll just kind of feel with my fingers just to make sure it's bone dry. And oftentimes after I'm done blow drying, I like to hit it with the cool shot. So I like to imagine the hair, as you blow dry, the cuticle sticking straight up. And as you hit it with that cooler, it just kind of seals it. It allows light to reflect off the hair, it looks shinier. So oftentimes after we blow dry our shape, we see all that unwanted weight. So I see that he's got this weird looking sideburn going on. So I'm going to come in when I taper in, I want to be coming in at a diagonal angle. I don't want to be coming in straight up. When I think of tapering in, I want to be coming in at that diagonal. So I'm cutting in at the spine of the comb. I got my teeth all the way closed, because when I have my teeth all the way closed, when I'm doing clipper over comb, the more tension and accuracy that you will get. So I'm just going to come in and just refine that. Now, keep in mind that we do not want to collapse our baseline. We want to work up to that baseline and taper in anything below that. Because we set in a really cool shape and we don't want to collapse it. Okay, I might come in, I'll open it up and I'll start to do a little freehand taper just to get a little more scalp exposure. And then I can come in and kind of clean it up with clipper over comb. I like to use a white comb on dark hair because, you're able to see that hair. You can see that already, hugging that head a little nicer. I'll come in behind the ear, and I'll just clean up some of that mess right there. I'm not sponsored by any like tool company. Oftentimes with like new barbers, people ask me, what tools are you using? What tools are you using? And if you ask 20 different barbers on what kind of tools they're using, you're going to get 20 different answers. because every single barber uses a tool that works best for them. So my best advice for tools and what you use, get your hands on as many tools as possible and figure out what you like, you know? For me, how I did it, to be honest, I've some of my favorite barbers and stylists on Instagram, I'd see what they do. I'd try it out. Sometimes it worked for me and sometimes it didn't. And then I would just kind of like figure it out that way. Come in and clean up behind that ear. So when creating and using your clipper, and just like doing with creating a shape with shears, your finger determines your shape, not the clipper or the tool. The comb is what's determining my shape. So now I'm going to taper in this a little. Now I'm going to come in and just kind of freehand taper that out. I'm kind of doing a C-scoop motion, cutting at the spine of my comb, and just tapering that in so it hugs a little nicer to the head there. And then I can come in and do some clipper over comb and clean that up. Remember, we're not trying to collapse our shape. I'm just kind of detailing that out a little bit. So I'll come in, do a nice little C-scoop motion. Anytime I'm working with my clipper, it's never a bad idea to use C-scoop motions because you don't want to set in any hard lines. And then you have to go higher and higher and higher. So I'll just kind of connect this on the ear. Get all that underneath there. I'll connect this side. Nothing too major, just kind of hugging that haircut tighter to the head. You can see that's going to give them a little more longevity. When I think of giving a nice taper in, I think of longevity in the haircut. And then I'll just kind of edge that up a little bit. When lining up a client, my best advice is to follow that natural hairline. You never want to cut into someone's hairline, because then like after a week, it's going to start to show. So just natural, just keep it natural. See how that hugs in the head a little nicer. I'll come into this side. Edge that up a little bit. I'll follow his natural hairline all the way up. Just clean it up around the ear. Cool. Now, can I use guards on the bottom? I totally can. If I want to take this a little tighter, how are we doing on time? 5 minutes, okay. You totally could come in
You're at
with
56
guards,
minutes.
but my best advice, I wouldn't go any higher than this. But I'll just kind of clean that up a little. Clean up that taper. And when I'm coming in, my teeth are kind of pointing out because I want it to angle in towards that hairline. Just keeping it as natural as possible. I never want to for me, I never want to just edge in a square line and block his hairline. I want it to be kind of soft. So as it grows out, it grows in a lot nicer. So now I'll just come in with my blending shears, and I like to use this clipper comb when I like take out some of the weight, just because the teeth are wider, and I'm able to get that comb through the hair. With like a smaller comb, it's kind of hard for me. So I'll kind of come in and I'll take out any unwanted weight that I see. Oftentimes we find that weight lie right at the baseline. Like I see a lot of weight through there. And just kind of soften it up a little bit. Now, I seen Rob come in with his fingers and just kind of go like this and just kind of take out. When he does that, he's cutting, like he's not closing the blade as he's chomping in on his finger. He's cutting out off the blade. And I thought that was so cool. And the first time I tried to do it, I definitely had some bloody knuckles. But it's kind of a cool technique, especially with the longer shape that you can kind of grasp on. But definitely you don't want to close a blade as you're coming into the hand, because you will take off a piece of your hand. So you can see that kind of softened it up a little. Nice and natural. Come back in with my comb. Kind of adjust this side. I'll put his ear down. Just take out any unwanted weight there. And then just how I cut that tinder triangle, I'll come in just like that. And I like to kind of take it and then kind of sprawl my hands out a little bit and then just kind of get in there and soften that up a little bit. And I'll do the same thing to this side. Just how I cut that triangle, I'm gonna come in on this side and just kind of soften that up. So we can see that pompadour really coming to life. And now all I really need to do is just kind of seal the deal with product. And I think today, since George is a musician, he doesn't really like his hair so slicked down and slicked back. I think I'll probably go with the matte styling paste, which is a great option. It's a matte finish. It's kind of a medium hold, so he'll be able to kind of run his fingers through his hair and rework it throughout the day. It has a nice a medium hold to it, and like I said, it's nice and pliable. It's nothing so slick back. He can allow his freak flag fly, if you will. And I think that's important for like musicians, because they're like headbanging and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I'll dust my boy off. And then with this, I always tell clients, with the matte styling paste and on longer hair, I'll start with maybe about that much. I always tell clients to start with less, and you could always add more. So as I'm going through this, I'll rub it through my fingers. I always tell clients, if you see any clumps on your hands, it's going to clump up in your hair. So as I apply this, I won't even use this hand yet. I'll just kind of graze it over and just kind of work it in with my palms, and then get in there with my fingers, and then I'll use this as like my palette, if you will. And I'll just be like, and I'll kind of rework it and just kind of shake it through. And then I'll rub it again, my hands, and then I'll take both hands and then kind of work it through from scalp to ends. And I could always add more, right? If I use too much, and then I kind of like screw myself. So has something he can come back. It's got a nice little pump there. I think I'll maybe just a tad more to finish this off, and then we should be good to go. Drop a fire emoji in the comments if you liked what you saw. Maybe like let me know what kind of technique you saw that you like, that you probably use in the shop. Awesome.
It looks great, Taylor. You're getting a lot of compliments in the comments section there.
And that's my long trim pump, or Vanguard, if we like to call it here. Nice and easy. And that will be the end of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. That looks great, man.